The coffee business to me made so much sense because I love coffee. It's a part of the brand, but more importantly, I really, really think that this gaming space has a negative stigma around people that don't support the fuel industry. But creators do not speak up about it because why go against the grain or try to row up current.
Hello and welcome to the Bears and Lions podcast, where we challenge our present by viewing our past. I'm a firm believer that our greatest future lies within the correct view of our past, because when you actually look at it, you're going to find out that you're smarter and even stronger than you could have possibly imagined. Despite all the things that you have come from, you have overcome so much more, and it gives you the confidence to step into your present. And that gives you the ability to step into the unknown and the future. In today's episode, I talked to Javier Collazo, who's known on the internet as MonsterDface. He was a Fortnite World Cup and FNCS caster, and he also is the CEO of a couple companies, which we talk about, CafeCollazo, as well as PracticeServer. This is an incredible conversation. We talk about graffiti. We talk about being a young teenager and 20-something. We also talk about coffee a lot, which is really exciting. There's so much in this conversation, and I really hope you enjoy. So without further ado, Javier Collazo. So MonsterDface, in the process of creating that, at what point was there a switch? At what point was there like, okay, I'm now Javier?
Well, yeah. So I mean, obviously, the name comes from graffiti past, right? Deface for defacing property and kind of graffiti and stuff like that. So that was just a completely different time in my life. I was a tumultuous teenager, if you will, right? Going through my rounds in my life, and it was amazing. I love art, love graffiti. I really embraced that identity. But as I started getting into gaming and growing out of just being a content creator, that's really where I realized, I'm showing up to meetings and I can't introduce myself as Monster. Like, you have to at some point or another put your ego aside, because that's really what your kind of brand and alias is, right? It's your ego personified when you are on camera. That's how you are the showsman that you are, and you are the entertainer that you are. It's really all it is. And the best of the best are those that are able to, again, personify that ego in a way that doesn't detach too far away from who they are on a day-to-day basis. So their authentic self, right? A good example is that I've always been who I am, very, very much chill, kind of in my own lane. The difference between when I'm live on camera and when I'm like not on camera is just the level of which I project. Because I'm actually in private settings, I do not talk loud. I have actually a very weak voice. I don't know how I'm a professional commentator. My voice burns out very fast. So yeah, it's kind of one of those fun things. So yeah, the transition came when I started getting into more taking my professional commentary more seriously, but more importantly, my businesses. When I started building business on the back end with PracticeServer, Movement Digital, other investments I've made in, I was just like becoming just myself as a person, and moving away from being the content creator and the brand that I built as a content creator, which also went through a number of evolutions. So big shout outs to my guy Jordan Fisher, because it was actually he who kind of inspired me when I was like, dude, this guy's in the gaming space, but he's just Jordan Fisher. Like, he's a celebrity, but he doesn't have a gaming tag or anything. Like, he's just Jordan Fisher. I was like, how dope would it be to just be Javier Collazo? Like, that'd be kind of sick. And that's when it kind of started. So it did start around 2019. I guess I could pinpoint the timeline because of the World Cup, obviously, is when he and I touched base.
That's awesome. And I don't know a single soul on this planet that doesn't love Jordan Fisher. So I have yet to find somebody who's like overly critical, because the dude is just entertaining all over. His streams, his professional life. I mean, he is probably one of the most talented humans I've ever seen, just in everything that he can pick up and do. And it's just awesome. So that's really cool. That's really a unique switch too, because you are involved in so many business sides. And that's something that I'm really excited, because I went through an evolution in transitioning out of content creation as well into podcasting and into like, this is where I feel like my niche is of where I am best at being able to have one-on-one conversations or one-to-many conversations about important things in life, how we develop, how we go through those, and how to take on some of those transitions with I call it a ferocity and a joy. I love ferocity and just the stance of being able to be intentional and being aggressive with it. You know, not something where it's like, oh, if it happens, it happens. And then joy, I think there's not a more powerful aspect in life than joy. And people can do incredible things when they're doing it joyfully. And people like to have fun at work. Like people like to enjoy work. And that was one of the things that I always enjoyed about PracticeServer was every time I joined a call before with pre stuff and the producers, I had so much fun. Like it was such a fun environment. I didn't feel out of place. I felt like everybody wanted um, everybody to succeed. It wasn't like, oh, it's you, it's me, it was just a incredible environment. Talk to me about cultivating that. Like where did that idea first begin? Where you like, you know what, this is something that could actually work.
I'll give the background history to what PracticeServer is first. So, for those folks tuning in, you're not just like trying to piece it together. So, PracticeServer is my company, one of my companies. We built probably one of the first online ecosystems based around cloud software to produce events remotely. And the idea behind it was I was already a professional commentator, and I was recognizing in different spaces that I was starting to become dependent on like the next gig. Like, oh man, is this thing gonna? Am I gonna get the call for that? And as a creator, a lot of creators start to get this fear of missing out. An event gets announced, they start pushing out talent rosters, and you start thinking to yourself like, oh man, I didn't get that call. Like, dude, what am I doing wrong? Like, or do I have to work harder? Like, who do I have to know? Like, so it really becomes increasingly stressful, especially as you start working your way up the top, because now you have to enter into a competition against yourself. How do you beat that last best thing you did? You never really get to live in celebration of your accolades because you are always too busy chasing the next thing. With all these things in mind, entered into gaming in this online world with all the intent to create because I really have fun creating and I enjoy the process of trying to figure out the strategy to be successful in this space because it very much is like a big strategy game. It really is because you have to position yourself in the right spaces. You have to do the things that are going to help you get from, step 1 to step 2, and then hopefully not stumble along the way where you take those 2 or 3 steps backwards and have to claw your way back up, right? The totem pole. So there's a lot that goes on in this gaming space. And as I transition out of like putting behind all of my day in and day out live streaming, excuse me, and YouTube content, I found myself doing professional commentary, and I was losing my viewership because I'm doing, I'm chasing this bag in the professional commentary world. But you're only as good as the next time they hire you. So I started thinking to myself, well, if they could pay me this much money to cast, well, who the heck's getting the check to hire all these people? I need to be that guy. Like, because I can't sit around and wait for an event to come to me. I need to start building events straight up. So that was the start of PracticeServer's idea. How do I build an event? What do I need to build an event? I'm already a very, very important and critical part of this puzzle because an event cannot go live if you do not have a caster or 2 or 3 of them, and they have to be good. And I knew by that point I was already good at what I did in the casting sense. So because that was a critical part of the formula, I pieced together the other, what I saw to be other 4 critical parts that I needed together. And I started the PracticeServer. The idea was I could build events remotely which are cost effective because, you know, at the end of the day, when the gameplay is full screen on the screen, they don't know if I'm in an arena or if I'm in a room. And that to me was fascinating because I was realizing I will get the same viewership on this clip because it's my voice and I did the right call at the right moment, not because it's my voice in an arena doing that same call in that same moment, because we're not celebrating me or the crowd. We're celebrating the player and the play on the screen. And that made it very transparent and immediate to me that this business can succeed regardless of anyone's opinion of it today, because when the clip is consumed, it's consumed in full screen and it's just gameplay. And I knew right then and there that I could build a business that was cost effective. That was before the pandemic. So imagine that. I put in the work, the equity, and the studying to build this infrastructure that can produce an online event before other companies did it, before the big companies that are hosting these lands knew how to do it. The pandemic amplified our success because now we became the consultants and the professionals who knew how to do it best, especially at the start. So we began with a running start, and we were able to pick up a lot of shows and consult for some of the biggest companies and charge them a lot of money to teach them how to do what we were doing. And through that hard work, the relationships, continued right into the years that we are today. And, remote production and online events, they're here to stay. And PracticeServer, again, was just one of the innovators in that space. And that's kind of the backstory. If you really think about where my mindset was and how I viewed that like moment, and that the way that content is really consumed is what led me to decide, like, dude, I could build this business in this space. I know it could be successful and it could cost way less, but we could be as impactful as any of the big shows. So that's how I built the practice.
That's incredible. What I love about that too is there was a premise prior to the pandemic, right? Being able to not foresee a pandemic, but foresee a need,
Yeah.
right? Being able to say, this is something that will succeed. This is something that
Well,
is
here here's a
capable.
fun fact too. I started the business. There was 5 founders, and like no more than like 2 or 3 weeks in, 2 of them dropped out, and then following like a month or two later, the third dropped out, and it became just myself and another person who were kind of spearheading the vision. Um, so it is kind of crazy how much I believed in it, that even when like all of my pieces were kind of falling around me, I'm like, no, dude, like this can work. Like I'm telling you, like it's common sense. Like just put the work in with me. Like we could do this.
Because you need that though. You need it because when you're building anything in particular, there's always going to be critics. There's always going to be people, close people, partners that are going to say, you know what, maybe this isn't the right direction. People who drop out of your life, whether it's in friend groups or school or work, you're going to have people who leave. And to be able to have that belief, not just in yourself, but in the product that you are bringing, right? Everything is about bringing value, and when you bring value to a situation, it opens up doors. So that's really awesome. Now, fast forward to where you are today. What's just a day in the life look like for you now? Because you are a CEO of multiple businesses. You've got entities in, you said Movement Digital as well, which we both know. Nikki Barnes, an incredible leader, incredible friend, and an incredible person. But talk to me about just a day in the life of Javier Collazo.
Yeah, I mean, there's all the times that. So one thing about me, I actually really dislike social media. I don't know how I became like somewhat popular, because I just hate the whole rat race, if you want to call it that, of like chasing impressions to try to grow and putting your business out there. Because I very much like to live a very humble and like chill life. But if I were to tweet my calendar of the last, go back basically since I launched PracticeServer, like 3 years, you will see there is rarely a day without line items, like literally filling it. And I celebrate the Saturdays or Sundays that I get with no meetings on it. But obviously that came later into the years. So a day in my life, even right now at a bare minimal, consists of an 8 a.m. meeting with my partner and other founder of CafeCollazo. We spend anywhere from an hour to two executing on the aggressive timelines we put in front of ourselves with all the operating needs, but also the social deliverables and just execution, right? To make that business a success as a startup. So there's tons of work that goes into that. Following a 10 a.m. mandatory recording for scripts, content, and deliverables needed to hand over to a full back-end suite team that I have on a contracted salary, essentially, to make sure I'm outputting YouTube content or whatever other content needs that I need fulfilled for my other social and company handles. Um, that leads into usually like anywhere from 11 to 12 a.m. I'm trying to fit in meetings, whether it's upkeeping business relationships or securing like whatever deals that I'm working on, or hiring or invoicing. Like there's so much that goes into just maintaining the minimals for the business. Around 1 to 2 o'clock, I know my wife has to pick up my child from school. She's a high school student. She cannot drive by herself or anything like that. So she still has to get picked up. So I have to now watch our baby, right? So that's my blackout hour, 2 hours I got to spend with the baby. As soon as she gets back, that's like almost 3 to 3:05 on the dot. I probably have a meeting lined up or podcast scheduled. I currently run 2 podcasts. So every Tuesday and Sunday, I film those episodes and I still have to edit and distribute them. Um, and then again, I have now my PracticeServer weekly meetings that happen twice a week as well, anywhere from 5 to 6 p.m. So you can see how like structured the timeline is and how much like blackout hours there are. And just like I have to do these things or my businesses will not progress and or fail. Minimal, right? And then there's the responsibility of being an adult and having a child and children and a wife, right? All of which need attention. And I don't think you heard me within any of that say I had a time to either eat breakfast, make another cup of coffee, or go for lunch, right? That is where having a wonderful wife and support system here at home and a family that understands how demanding work as someone who owns businesses comes into play. So there's a lot of things that I think that work well for me that allow me to do even what I do, because without that additional support, I mean, I'd be a skeleton and bones up in here trying to, work through the hours. Um, and yeah, that doesn't include when I have shows and, all the gigs and just things like that. Those are like my bare minimals. Like I got to hit these things and I know exactly kind of those windows that they're going to come up. So yeah, it's a full-time job in a lot of different respects, because they all require full-time attention to be successful.
I've tried, well, two flavors, but I have the vanilla bliss right now.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed. I'm impressed because I'm not a coffee drinker at all. I actually do not like coffee. It's just something about it messes with my stomach. But I've had a couple cups of the different Cafe Collazo coffees. What was the idea? Like where did that come from in creating a brand of, because there's such a big, energy based, you need energy in the gaming world. You've got every type of Red Bull, Monster, Ghost, everything. What was your idea in just like, you know what, let's go basic?
There's a lot that goes into the reason Cafe Collazo as a brand has been able to have a successful launch. A lot of that goes into my history, right? I have around over a decade now. I'm approaching 11 years in the industry, maybe 12 if I really count hard enough. But I have a lot of years in this space, the bulk of which was spent as a creator, right? I became a career creator about a year into it. And I always started my days with a lot of black coffee with sugar in it. So I was that young, caffeinated, sitting at the desk, just hyped up streamer. Like I brought a lot of energy to the table. I really lived in a moment and really appreciated my journey, out of New York City, out of the Bronx, and into my own levels of success. So coffee was a mainstay, a staple of the brand. It was a necessity in order to do the 12 to 14-hour streams I was doing. Period. Like period. There were no days off. There are no days off if you are a content creator or entrepreneur. So every day it was multiple 3 to 4 to 5 cups of coffee. Very much a highly caffeinated, highly energetic content creator. Like that's what it was. Eventually, as I got a little older, changed my content style from being so um, you know, uh, rough around the edges, if you want to call it that. And I got more into like, how do I become a forward facing creator brands want to work with, sponsors want to work with? I started making lifestyle adjustments, drinking much less caffeine, removing the sugar, just stop drinking Red Bulls because I was doing all of the above and then some. Um, that that turned into me kind of building a brand around, well, I love coffee, so I'm gonna drink it because I love it. And I started drinking decaf and I got away from caffeine. But I always loved the taste of coffee. So I actually enjoy coffee from an enjoyment perspective. And I did this thing called the mug of the day with my YouTube channel, and it was a huge W. Like people loved it. Because I'd come out, I'd pull out all these fun anime mugs or different inspired like created mugs. I mean, right here I have one. I'll show it to the camera really quickly. Probably not going to catch focus. Oh, it does. Nice. It says MDF on it with a barcode. So that was the MDF ink mug. Whenever we're in the office, I had this one on the table. It was like a part of a skit where I was the boss, CEO. We're at the MDF Ink. If you subscribe, you just got hired basically to the fan base. You know what I mean? Like we had some fun stuff throughout the years, and it kind of stuck with the brand as like I would always use a coffee emoji when I responded to people. So I kind of built the brand around coffee. Moving into my later years, obviously beyond the production business, I started looking at, okay, PracticeServer as a business is a service based business, but I do not sell a tangible product. Like, where do I start? What do I want to do? And the first thing I thought of was like, well, first of all, this space sucks with like all the garbage G Fuel and Glitch Energy, and I don't know, I can name 100 of them, but they're ass. Like they're terrible. Like this is bad stuff. I'm fairly certain there's some carcinogens up in there, and studies are going to show and prove over time that this right here is very, very unhealthy for you. And I knew that immediately. And one of the running memes on my channel, like kind of, growing up through the years was, yo, if you ever see me promoting a fuel product, I'm down bad, boys. And I need that cash today. If you see me promoting this to y'all. And it was really a meme in the channel, but I was dead serious too. I was like, I won't say I won't ever do it because if I'm down and I need money, we got to do what we got to do. And that was one of the lowest lows I would ever stoop to, is actually promoting a fuel product to youth. Um, so yeah, the coffee business to me made so much sense because I love coffee. It's a part of the brand, but more importantly, I really, really think that this gaming space has a negative stigma around people that don't support the fuel industry. But creators do not speak up about it because why go against the grain or try to row up current. But that's what we're doing when I launched the brand, because our first slogan is this: no powder here, just beans. And we're a whole bean coffee distributor now. And yeah, we source some of the best coffee around the world. Don't put any artificial flavors or anything crazy like that. This is just purely highly graded roasted coffee imported from some of the most ethical farms around the world, and yeah, delivered on demand, on order. We roast it right then and there, and we send it to your door when you place an order.
I can 100% tell you. So I freshly ground, because it comes as the whole
Mm-hmm.
coffee bean. I freshly ground this. I don't have like a grinder or anything. I use a mortar and pestle,
You
and
could do that.
it
You
like
could use a blender.
as
Yeah,
yeah, as I was grinding it though, it filled the whole kitchen area with that fresh,
aroma.
like it really did still have that, hey, we just roasted this. and you could get that whole aroma, and then pouring it, you could just it fills the whole area with aroma, which I do like the coffee smell. So like I'm not like a huge coffee drinker, and it's mostly because like I had health issues and acid reflux and stuff like that. So like certain acidic drinks, and coffee is a very acidic drink. It'll mess with me, especially if I drink it later in the day. Early in the day, it's
Mhm.
not too bad. But I just really love tea because that's what I've trained myself
Yep.
for. So if you start distributing tea, let me know. But even this, it's got really light notes. Like the Vanilla Bliss that I have, it's got really light notes of vanilla, where it's not like a French vanilla artificial, like overpowering or anything. It's just very light. So I
Again, I'm kind of a nerd about the coffee stuff now, as I've slowly began to increase my expertise and my knowledge in the space. Those beans, or like the coffee that you taste that can say like this tastes like almond, a lot of the times because they take the bean and they coat it. That's like where the artificial flavoring comes in, because yeah, the bean as itself is natural, and it's roasted in a way to, obviously, produce the caffeine so you can extract it with hot water essentially. But when you get those, like this is cherry, it's because they coat the thing with that. Whereas, our experts roast the bean, we import the type of bean, it already has its kind of own natural profile, but the flaving, or the flavor test taste, kind of comes out of the way you, the again, how long in which you actually roast the bean. So another fun fact for those of you guys listening out there: if you're into a dark roast is actually less caffeinated, because there's less concentrated caffeination in a dark bean than there is in a light roast, and it's an actual common misconception. Although light roast tastes a little less like coffee and closer to like the water that you're processing it through, and the other additives, the sugar or creamer or whatever you're adding to it, it's actually much more highly caffeinated than a dark roast coffee, which tastes more like the coffee bean itself. Which a lot of people don't really know that. And there's a misconception, because people will say, "Oh no, I'm into dark roast and dark coffee because I like it, strong." And I'm really like, "Well, it's not stronger. If you actually drink the one that tastes less like coffee, that thing is a lot stronger for you. If you want the caffeine hit." So Vanilla Bliss has a lot of caffeine in it. Is what I'm trying to say. It's a light roast. It's a little, again, lighter flavor notes. As far as the coffee's concerned, that's probably why you like it, because you're closer to tea.
Mhm.
Which again, it's going to reflect that, but it's going to have more caffeine than maybe one of our other roasts would have.
I'm okay with caffeine. I don't do any caffeine anymore after like noon or maybe
There you
2
go.
p.m. depending
Hmm.
on what I have in the afternoons. I went through this whole like discipline journey where I started waking up at 4:45 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and I just needed to change and see what happened. So I followed a bunch of protocols from like Andrew Huberman and a few other people. Matt Walker is an incredible sleep specialist, so I started sleeping better, and I immediately saw a change. Like I've lost 10 pounds since I did that. I'm in the gym consistently without feeling like I'm sore from the days
Yep.
before, because my rest and recovery is so much better. So I do love caffeine. I just don't drink it after a certain amount of time to allow my body to process it.
When I was
Because
so I did a vegan like kick for like almost a
ooh,
year. During that time, I was also doing the 4 or 5 a.m. wake ups. No caffeine, just savaging it out. At that time, I was going live on Twitch though, so it's a little different. I get the natural adrenaline boost of my body's like, all right, time to turn online. Got to be an entertainer, right? But I say that to say that that was some of the most like mental clarity I've ever experienced, as far as not being caffeine dependent. And that was coming off of literally abusing caffeine to some degree, right? I started drinking caffeine again when I had my baby. So about a year ago, it's like, yeah, I'm back on it. So now I've invested like fully into the caffeine kind of sphere again. These espresso shots are wonderful in the morning, in the caffeine and the type of coffee, the way at least I'm roasting it and processing it here at home. But yeah, I'm totally with you as far as I know exactly what it feels like when you're on super clean eating, restricting just what you're intaking and being super conscious of your sleep and stuff like that, it can make a world of difference.
Yeah, and what I've noticed is it's now a normal, and that was the goal. I didn't really care about working out for like, oh, I want to look buff or anything like that. Like, I just needed
Mhm.
discipline, and I mentioned prior that 2021 and 2022 really messed with my brain, and I had to get out of that mentality between the depression and just the complete dependency on like alcohol and gaming, and it was just not a healthy place. And now I can go out, I can have fun, I can drink alcohol, I'm not overdoing it. I have like a respect for it. And the next day I can still wake up and my normal schedule is still going to take place. So that's a really I think it's a good thing. I think everybody should. If you are dependent on something, just ask yourself, is this hurting or helping my future? In most cases, especially when it's a product of some sort, it's usually hurting it.
More importantly, some people don't know how to recognize that, right? And an easy telltale sign is, like you said, with alcohol. It's very easy to abuse alcohol. If you're at that third drink and you're telling yourself, I shouldn't do this, I'm gonna wake up hungover, or yo, this is gonna take me way over the ledge, don't drink it. Like, it's at that moment, if you still give in to your um and needs or want, right, at that point you're abusing alcohol, right, and you're abusing your body, and you're going to wake up feeling sick, etc. When I got to the point to where I could like say no at that point, I knew I had more control, and it feels actually pretty empowering to know that, like, dude, I could drink one drink, two drinks, catch a buzz or whatever, and coast right there and just chill. Um, so yeah, I think that is a level of maturity, but also, like, yeah, being in control of yourself and your your being responsible in that moment.
Yeah, you if you say yes to it, oh, I should I have another drink? No, probably not. But you say yes, you subconsciously train your body that it's okay to do that, and then it bleeds into other areas of your life too, where it's like you may be going through something at work with a boss, or something at school where it's like I shouldn't do this, but you've trained yourself subconsciously to say yes, it's okay to do it. So you start doing those things, which is
We c-
fascinating.
we can
I do
all.
want to
Oh, go
jump.
ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do just want to jump back to like Javier as a child. What were some of the things that you wanted to do? I mean, we've talked about the present, we've talked about some of the stuff that you're working on, but this all happened in the last, like you said, 11, 12 years of your life. What were some of the things that you grew up wanting to do? And how did that impact your pursuit?
Yeah, I lived a very fast life during my teenage years. Growing up in the Bronx, New York City, we were a very scrappy household. Household filled with love, but we didn't have much more than that. And I found myself out in the streets, doing whatever the heck I could do to either make ends meet, or just a regular day in the life did not consist of me sitting at home, right? So with all that in mind, by the time I was 17, I was already living with a girlfriend that I was dating. So I moved out of my house very, very young. By the time I was 18 and finishing high school, I was already kind of gaming the school system in New York City. In high school, I recognized really early, like it's probably my sophomore year, that the first and second grading periods held no value or weight towards whether or not I actually earned the credit for that grading period to allow me to advance to the next class in the tier. So I began skipping school for the first 60 days, and then attending school vigorously and doing all of the course material for the last 30 days to pass that leg to get the credit. Think about that. I spent 2 months cutting school, lying to my parents, waking up at 6 a.m. so they thought I was taking the bus or train to school, to not attend school at all. So instead, live my life as a young teenager with no money just hours on end walking through New York City and Manhattan and doing God knows what every day for months on end, all year long, hiding my report cards. And just, I was a ter- terrific liar to my parents. I was too good at that until I eventually got caught and got very intense ass whippings. But it all very much shaped me to who I am today. So yeah, that was that. Those were my teenage years. What did I want to do? What did I hope to aspire to be or become? Um, at that moment, all I was fixated on was graffiti and doing it well and being the best at it. I had a massive fixation with the art world. I loved it, and the culture and the grime in New York City that comes with it. It was very very fun. But I never let myself fail out of school because I would hit that switch when it became time to be responsible to earn my credits. So I graduated on time like everyone else, and it was at 18. I already had my game plan. Like when I turned 18, I'm an adult now. I can't get arrested. This becomes permanent. So I really, really got to enjoy years 15, 16, 17 up until that 18th birthday. So the 18th birthday, senior year high school, I stopped literally stealing and doing all the crazy stuff around the streets and just graduated and signed up for college. And then I went to go be a+ student in college in criminal justice, the irony. And I have an associate's degree because I was just going to pursue policing and the military at that point. So yeah, very very much fit. Was super familiar with like our what's it called, ROTC. Just all those programs and stuff that help enable you to enroll in the military early and have an advantage. I was taking all of those courses um, in the basically my 18th leg year because I was like, all right, I got to stop being a goon and like go be responsible. Um, yeah, I had very 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 interesting childhood, and the way I my perspective on life was very unique. I think to my age and yeah, amongst my family, I was definitely the leader. I'm the oldest of my siblings, so yeah, I just you know guess I wore the responsibility of a lot throughout those years. But yeah, very independent, very self sufficient, super early on.
What's something that you're proud of that you accomplished maybe in those early years? You say you still graduated
Mhm.
high school, still went to college. What's something that maybe you look back on and you're just proud of? Like, wow, I did this.
I have a lot that I was really really proud of because although I did like I'll I could name one for like all the categories. Like graffiti is a great example. I achieved something that again a lot of graffiti artists strive to achieve is a title of going all city. That's basically saying that I was able to tag up every single borough and just about every single neighborhood possible that I was not globally recognized, but I was infamously recognized amongst the art culture in that space. And to this date, I have pieces that have been running for over 15 years because my mindset was so unique. Even then, when I looked at a wall in a spot, I tried to write on essentially very hard to get to locations, places that I thought wouldn't get cleaned up, that would just kind of live in the the grime of that neighborhood for forever. Um, and they're called forever spots for a reason. So when I looked at the one, I was like, dude, that because I think graffiti artists do, they write the year they tag that wall. So if I looked at a wall and I was like, that tag says 1998 next to it, that's got another 10 years on it. Like, I need to get on this wall. Maybe not the street level because that'll get cleaned. I need to find out how to get on top of this, you know, air conditioning unit that's sticking out the side of the building. How can I get up there? Do I need a ladder? Do I got to jump down from the roof down? Right? Like, thinking so wildly different like that, even with the graffiti, so that I can have a long lasting impact in the graffiti world was also a part of my accomplishments. So very happy about those. And then in the more educational sense, one of the first, to attend college for on behalf of my family. That was a very proud moment, the moment of acceptance, but also finding that I was able to be successful in that space was a big win for me. I felt really good about that, and crazy fact. I only just claimed my diploma, like just claimed my diploma because I had to file for a work visa to go to Copenhagen to do a European show, and I graduated college and I didn't I didn't show up for prom in high school. I didn't show up to pick up my I didn't care about them telling me congrats. It meant that paper meant literally nothing to me. I didn't pick it up. Same thing for college. You would think I'm gonna walk down, yo, look at me. I'm gonna post on Instagram my cap and got. I didn't literally did not care. I got my credits, hit my prerequisite. And I didn't attend the ceremonies to claim the reward, if you will, because the reward was never that to me. The reward was completing that and internally saying, hell yeah, I did that. Like, what's next? So crazy. I could literally open that drawer right there and show you it. I just got my diploma like 10 years later.
That's,
It's
well,
kind of wild.
you have it.
Yeah, I
You
guess I
have
have
it.
it, dude.
You
Yeah.
know, I think that tells a story about who you are as a person, though, in the fact that you can set out to do something not with a tangible victory or a tangible reward. So many people, they want something for it. And I think in our culture nowadays, our society, it's what have you done for me lately, or what do I get out of you in relationships? It's what do you bring to the table, or what do I get from you, instead of I'm just going to do this. And being able to do something like that, you have a track record, which is incredible because now you actually have like this beautiful story
Yeah.
of if somebody ever needed to ask you, what's a track record of things that you've done. Well, I can do something really difficult with no determination of whether or not I get a piece of paper or I get a reward or I get a satisfaction of somebody saying like, hey, good job, like
So
you just
that
did it.
carries into my professional world pretty heavily. You could I call it dangling the carrot. When a client is like, "Oh, well, come on, you sure you don't want this much money to do this thing?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not interested in that thing." Right? Or you're asking for way too much work than what it's worth for me at this moment. Anything that adds stressors to my plate, stressors that I don't enjoy. There's a lot of stressors I do enjoy. Stressors that I don't enjoy, I am hard stance on like no means no. But if you want to do it still, it's going to cost you way more than it's probably worth for you now, or you have to do it my way. This is a campaign that I do think will work well because I will enjoy doing it. Thus, the product should be pretty good, right? Like that should be the workflow. So this is something that I carry with me regularly in the professional side, and some of my team may not understand that either because to some in the esports space everything is like a yes. You gotta say yes to every opportunity and you gotta do the work and get it done. But I have been fortunate enough to be very selective with some of our programs and activations, but in return, look at the brand we've built, look at the reputation we have, look at the accolades and the types of products we are able to stand alongside. A lot of that does have to do with taking sometimes an L in the shortcoming, but having the long term, brand and product and victory in mind. So yeah, it is very interesting. I think I'm lucky enough to I don't know what caused the trait, right, to be one of my personality traits, but yeah, it works well in the professional side.
That's awesome. And now you're talking about traits, which segues perfectly into my next question, because I think as we look at characteristics of ourselves, if somebody wants to be disciplined, then they've got to practice discipline. If somebody wants to be patient, then they have to practice patience and build it. If you could fast forward 10 years from now and describe yourself and what characteristics you carry, maybe some tangible things as well, maybe some tangible goals, but what are some of the things that you're doing today to build that reality of you in the future?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm very proactive right now on my financial health. I've just found myself with, again, in a very fortunate position that, I need to start taking investments a little more seriously, start looking at what does a retirement fund look like, life insurance, right? Like I have kids and all these different things now that weren't a factor, um, a couple years ago. So life is coming at me very fast in a lot of those regards, and yeah, if there's something that looking to the future that I hope I've from now to then already accomplished is setting myself up to be financially successful for the long term, in the ways that I should do it today while I have maybe a little extra liquid cash to invest here or there. You look at a lot of the celebrity stories and you're like, "Dude, how'd you go broke? You were during this year." Well, a lot of the times they didn't have themselves educated on financial, wealth and the health of their situation.
That's I think you hit the nail on the head too, because you have to understand your determination of like, hey, if you have a little bit extra, it's easy to spend a little bit extra.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people go awry is they get accustomed to living at a certain means, and then they have like, a job change, or they have they win the lottery or whatever. And just the statistics are people tend to revert
Mm,
back, and,
mhm.
they don't actually do anything to continue it. They just spend it all and go back to their, oh, I'm
My
living on 60,000, or living on a
my
certain
wife
amount.
laughs at me because most of my wardrobe is like free clothes because, again, I'm lucky enough to be in a position as an influencer. Like, I'll get a package from Xset, or that one time Ninja did a collab and he sent me sneakers from Adidas, to like show it off or whatever. But like, yeah, I just don't anymore, right? Spend on like those things. Like, I don't care if I'm in designer clothes, but like there's people that absolutely do. And sure, whatever, if fashion's your thing, if it makes you feel good, like that's that. But I'm lucky enough to not have expensive hobbies. Um my most expensive hobbies used to be me spending money on all the mobile games, and I cut those out of my life. And nowadays it's like buying this dope Elgato prompter and whatever other technology stuff, right? Or investing in my businesses. So at least where I spend is very much in this world that I live in, because I enjoy this world that I live in. So, yeah, I'm lucky enough to at least spend on the stuff that helps me build better in the career sense, because it could have easily gone a different direction.
Oh, I'm similar in that, where it's like I could easily spend a lot of money, but I'm learning
Yeah.
more and more. It's like, okay, you shout out Elgato, that's what's lighting me. And
Hmm.
I made some purchases that were more expensive, but they've paid in dividends over and over and over in my future. So I mean, I 100% agree. And everybody, if you're into fashion, be into fashion. That's okay. If that's your niche. Now, I like electronics and things that I can
Yeah.
use for recording, or program software that allows me to do
Those
my job easier.
those same fashion experts look at you. You bought a $400 mic, you idiot. Like
Yeah.
why, right? Like, and I'm like,
How
yeah,
much were your shoes? 600? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it goes. It's a two-way street for sure.
It really is. So we've kind of looked backwards, we've looked a little bit forwards, we've looked a little bit at your present and where you are right now. If you were just able to take a time machine back to you at 17, you at 16, when you were enjoying walking the streets of New York, what advice would you give your younger self if you went back with you as today, going back there and just running into him on the street?
I mean, I don't think there is much advice I could give myself, mostly because I would hate to, push myself off this course that I've landed my 2 feet on today. So I wouldn't change too much, but I will say a lot of the, lessons that I learned from there to my early years, especially even on the gaming platform side, um, are ones that I would enjoy to share with you all that are listening. And one of those just being that when you are passionate about something, it's pretty cliche for people to say to go and chase your dreams, but that isn't really enough. I think more people need to do their due diligence and study and learn how to be impactful with your time. So if there was something I would reinforce about myself at that time, would be to continue to stay conscious of my impact that I can make in whatever thing or goal that I'm pursuing, and work in accordance to be impactful and conscious of, even, again, what I'm doing, right? So that we're not being wasteful on either resources or time spent in any given field. So yeah, like I said before, or just a little bit ago, I was lucky enough to have certain traits that I've become grown to become a big fan of as I've like kind of look back, not realizing then and there, like I was operating off of instinct and growth in the moment. But yeah, looking back on it, those are the things that I think have allowed me to be successful today, is working with purpose and with yeah, impact in mind.
I like the purpose side of things because I think a lot of people will say, I work harder, right? And like chase your dreams. But a lot of times that doesn't have a direction. So they
Yeah.
just spread themselves so thin thinking,
Working harder is streaming for more hours. Working smarter is, how about you don't stream those extra 4 hours and go make 5 YouTube videos, right? Like there's ways to be impactful and be very conscious and effective with your time. So those are the lessons that I would absolutely make sure that I'm walking away with during those years, because those are wonderful years and you have so much energy and youth, and you know what I mean? You're in the moment. Dude, if you operate like that, you're gonna excel undoubtedly.
absolutely. So that brings us to our final countdown. And this is where I go through just 10 quick questions, off the top of your head answers. Nothing too crazy. We've got a couple specific questions that I added in here. So if you're ready, we can go ahead and see if you will be able to pass the final countdown.
Okay, let's go.
All right, the final countdown with the 60 seconds or less. Let's get it. What is your favorite genre of movie?
I'm all about crime and New York City based films.
I love it. Tacos or burritos?
Burritos for sure.
I like it. What would be a go-to karaoke song?
If I had to sing one, Eden Project Drowning, because I know all the words.
There you go. Favorite TV show?
Game of Thrones is like up there, and I read all the books. I'm a nerd.
I like it. That's it's such a good movie or such a good show. What celebrity would you love to have coffee with?
Al Pacino, he's my favorite actor.
Name an underrated yet entertaining streamer.
Streamer, underrated, entertaining. That's a really tough one. But if I'm gonna pick, I'm gonna go with someone in the, not the Fortnite category, but the Dark and Darker category. I'm a big fan of someone called Firebox on YouTube right now.
All right, you heard it here. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
I'm breakfast man.
If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
I actually walk around thinking about this all the time. When I was younger, I would listen to like a lot of the 50 Cent songs, like Patiently Waiting, and I also know all the words to that. So if I was going to do karaoke, that was the second.
What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Um, Dude, I come across morons in this industry all the time, but there was one time, and this guy sticks out to me. He's actually now under investigation for fraud. I'm not gonna name him because this is not the podcast for that. But this dude was gloating so much about his celebrity circles, and I absolutely hate him. And it wasn't necessarily advice, but it was the fact that he was trying to lure me and tempt me into his schemes based off of his inner circle. So yeah, anyone that kind of funnels down this like greed mentality, absolutely despise.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
I was at my very first PAX event, and a man by the online alias, I believe it's D Rod. I'm pulling this one wrong, but it does begin with a D. I'll find it later. He told me that the way I was monetizing my channel was absolutely wrong. My subscription revenue and income needed to become my C and D revenue, and I needed to look at the industry from a different lens. That my A revenue should be the sponsors and the big, basically corp wigs that have the real dollars. And that allowed me to approach the space with a completely different perspective. And we use the analogy that your immediate community, your network, your friends around you, that's your well. You never run your well dry, because if you do, you're gonna die. Like you need water, right? So yeah, I never seek to monetize my anyone around me, and it changed my business mentality and my trajectory forever.
Well, I appreciate it. The last two I think are two really solid questions in being able to determine successful mindsets, including just advice for us. I think we can all glean from each other. One of my mentors always said, the difference between a successful person and a stupid person is a stupid person thinks they have to experience everything to learn. A successful person will hear what other people experienced and learn from them without ever having to experience it. So I appreciate you sharing your insight. And all that's left now is just to find out, where can we find you? Where can we follow your journey? You said you're on 2 podcasts, so
Oh,
you've
dude.
got podcasts to shout out, you've got companies to run. It's been
Yeah.
incredible.
Man, I do so much stuff, guys. If you want to keep up with my day to day, I try to use Twitter as a means to celebrate the W's, but more importantly, really give advice, and yeah, you'll see. So find me on Twitter, all social handles at MonsterDface. And yeah, if you want to, check out some coffee, that's really what I'm trying to promote right now and build up. So CafeCollazo is a very much authentic and wonderful coffee brand and business that we're working on right now. So that's my passion project right now. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. There will be links on the post with all of your social media, and being able to go through there. So I appreciate the time, the advice, the conversation was incredible. I'd love to do it again in a couple months and see
There's
where
there's
we're
a
at and
there's
see
so
how
much
things are
more you
going.
you have no idea about.
But that's the preface that you just set. Now, our next conversation, we're going to
Oh
delve
yeah,
into so much more. We're going to get names and receipts and things like
yeah,
that.
dude.
But I appreciate it so much. Javier Collazo, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to find me on my socials, you can find me on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, as well as TikTok at Kyle Vaught. That's KYLEV as in Victor ATT. And if you want to find me on Instagram or Threads, it's at Kyle_Vaught, V as in Victor ATT. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Share this with somebody who may be inspired by the stories told. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then you can also hit that follow button and share as well. I'd really appreciate it for everybody. I hope that you have a wonderful week and a special Merry Christmas. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.